Hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us tonight. Here on The Hill, I'm Blake Burman. This is The Hill on News Nation. President Trump in the Oval Office just moments ago with a major statement and recommendations when it comes to autism.
So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good. For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary.
So, is there a treatment for autism, and should pregnant women stop using Tylenol, as you heard the president suggest there? We are asking the former head of the CDC. Also tonight, is Jimmy Kimmel making a return? Disney makes a big announcement after pulling the late-night host for his comments on Charlie Kirk. Also tonight, military action in the Caribbean. Maduro's plea to the president after Trump sends 3 Venezuelan ships to the bottom of the sea. And as I mentioned tonight, this action right here, that letter that letter from Maduro to Trump, we'll get into it tonight here on The Hill. But first tonight, here from The Hill, has the government uncovered new clues into the rise of autism? A federal report from HHS linking the active ingredient in painkillers like Tylenol to autism. The agency now warning pregnant women against using the drug. The company Kenvue, which is the maker of Tylenol, putting out a statement today saying this in response: nothing is more important to us, they write, than the health and safety of the people who use our products. We have continuously evaluated the science and continue to believe there is no causal link, they say, between acetaminophen use during pregnancy and autism. Now, autism rates have climbed dramatically in the last 25 years. Here's from the start of the century until now. 25 years ago, in 2000, it was about 1 in 150. 1 in 150 were diagnosed. The latest CDC report puts that number at 1 in 31. Boys specifically being more likely than girls to be diagnosed. That big announcement from the president moments ago, Donald Trump, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Mehmet Oz, Dr. Marty McCary, all at the White House together. And that's where we find our Joe Khalil, who is at 1600 Pennsylvania for us tonight. Joe?
Yeah, Blake, what was remarkable is President Trump was absolutely explicit in saying, don't take Tylenol. There was no nuance in his statement at all. He said, don't take it. It is not good. And he continued to harp on the numbers in terms of autism diagnoses. Take a listen here to just a little bit of what we had heard in just the last half hour.
I was told 1 in 12. Today I heard 1 in 31 if you add the girls and the boys together. It's crazy. And it was 1 in 10,000 and 1 in 20,000. It's not even sustainable for a country, you want to know the truth. And there are other places that don't have it.
So both he and the health secretary there, RFK Jr., Blake, said that acetaminophen actually has a direct link to autism, and that was the warning there. And he said that he got a question about how there are certain medical organizations, just one, for example, being the Association of Gynecologists and Obstetricians, that essentially say that there is no specific and direct link just yet, that there may be correlation but not causation. And he said that was the establishment, in the words of the president. RFK Jr. also went on to say that it's not only going to be this, but that HHS will continue to research vaccines and links between that and autism, despite, again, the majority of the medical and scientific community effectively dismissing that link. This is what RFK Jr. said here.
One area that we are closely examining, as the president mentioned, is vaccines. Some 40 to 70% of mothers who have children with autism believe that their child was injured by a vaccine.
So the actionables here, FDA, NIH, and CMS, Blake, are going to be adding labels to Tylenol to explain this. They're also going to be pushing for leucovorin to be a treatment for children who have autism, and all the agencies, Secretary Kennedy says, will be working on that together.
Joe Khalil at the White House for us tonight. as that announcement was just made. Joe, thank you. So over the years, several studies have tried to explore a potential link between Tylenol and autism and other neurological conditions. Just last year, for example, a study of children born in Sweden showed that acetaminophen use during pregnancy was not associated with the use, with children's risk, rather, of autism. But last month, a study from the U.S., including researchers from Harvard, showed a potential link. That study saying, quote, appropriate and immediate steps should be taken to advise pregnant women to limit acetaminophen consumption. The president giving this message several times today.
Don't take Tylenol. Don't give Tylenol to the baby after the baby's born. Every time the baby gets a shot, the baby gets a shot. They say, here, take a cup of Tylenol. I've heard that for years. Take Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Don't have your baby take Tylenol.
All right, with me now, here on the Hill, Dr. Tom Frieden, former CDC director during the Obama administration. He's also the author of The Formula for Better Health, How to Save Millions of Lives, including your own. Dr. Frieden, nice to have you back with us tonight here on the Hill. So there's really a couple big messages coming out of the White House. Let's break them down one by one. I don't remember the president, and thank you for being with us tonight, sir. I don't remember the president as recently being as passionate as what he just said there, which is, one, if you're a pregnant woman, don't take Tylenol, and two, if you have a newborn, don't give them Tylenol. He said it over and over. What say you?
Well, first off, I think we have a lot of empathy with families dealing with kids with autism. It's a mysterious disease. It can be very challenging. People can live long, productive lives, healthy, with autism, but it is a real challenge for many families. Second, we are seeing an increase. Some of that increase is because we're recognizing it more, but some is real. There's a real increase in autism. And although we wish we could find one clear cause and stop it with that clear cause, it's extremely unlikely that Tylenol is that cause. Now, when a woman is pregnant, it's really important that she not take any medications that are not necessary. But pain and fever, which Tylenol treats, and more safely than many other medications, are also bad for the baby. So I think this is something best discussed between the doctor and the pregnant woman, the obstetrician and the pregnant woman, but the weight of the evidence doesn't show a definitive link between Tylenol and autism. I'm not saying it's not there. I think the more we know about science, the more humble we are about what we can say with what certainty. What I can tell you with certainty, for example, is that folic acid is very important in pregnancy, and taking folic acid from a month before conception through conception, especially in that first trimester, will be very good for the baby's health and may substantially reduce the chance of autism.
Yeah, so you talk about folic acid. This is Leucovorin, as you know better than I, sir, vitamin B. This is the other side of it, which is potential treatment. As I hear you there, and I'll let you expand upon it more, and you see some of it on the screen there for those at home listening to us. For those at home watching us on NewsNation or listening to us on Sirius XM, for example, it's an antidote for effects of some cancer medication, helps in the prevention and treatment of anemia, and acts in the same way as a folic acid. What about this idea that this could be used as a treatment for autism, doctor?
Yeah, so folic acid and folinic acid are slightly different. They're used differently, but they have a similar action in the body. There is some evidence that folinic acid may be helpful for some kids with autism. One thing that's really important to understand about autism is it's probably not one single caused entity. It's a wide range of disabilities and characteristics, some in the generally functional range, some quite challenging for living the activities of daily living. So this is an experimental treatment. It's not a harmful treatment because it's a vitamin that is helpful anyway. But I would really double down on the issue of folic acid for pregnant women. About 1 in 6 or maybe even 1 in 3 pregnant women in the U.S. don't get enough folic acid. That's something we're quite confident of increasing the risk of autism if you have too little folic acid. We know other things are also resulting in an increased risk of autism, including increasing parental age, and that accounts for a significant proportion of the increase.
Doctor, I want to read you something that Kurt Bardella, who's a contributor here on News Nation, he's on the show all the time. I asked him if I could read this. He said I could. Let me leave you with this. Kurt posted this a little while ago. He said, my wife and I live in the reality of raising a kid on the spectrum every single day. I don't agree with President Trump or Bobby Kennedy on almost anything, but one thing I will say, I am thankful they have put autism front and center and have made it a top health priority. Where would you like to see the administration, HHS, the medical sort of apparatus within the government go from here?
I agree that autism is a major and an increasing problem for our kids. It's serious, it's important. What I hope we don't see is simplistic solutions or conclusions that aren't supported by the data, overly strongly either scaring or reassuring people. There are things that can be done to support people living with autism. There are things that can be done to reduce the risk of autism, but there's a lot we don't understand. And the more we're upfront, humble about what we know, what we don't know, the more we can gain and retain that trust with the patients and the families dealing with autism.
Dr. Tom Frieden, straightforward with us tonight, apolitical on an issue that impacts a whole lot of families and a whole lot of children in this country. I should note before we head out, Doctor, 3.62 million babies born in the U.S. last year alone. Dr. Frieden, thanks for being with us tonight here on The Hill. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, still to come tonight. Over the next 50 minutes or so, President Trump and his war on drugs. Those deadly U.S. boat strikes in the Caribbean. Is this about to become the norm? What the White House said today when asked about it, plus this.
I forgive him.
That powerful moment, you might have seen it over the weekend, as Erica Kirk says she forgives the man who killed her husband, Charlie Kirk. Both sides of the aisle on the other side of the breaker as the Hill returns with what happens next. And is the president twisting the attorney general's arm? Why he's calling out Pam Bondi and what the White House had to say today. I'm Blake Burman. I thank you for being with us tonight. Back on the other side here in 4 minutes.
The administration's position on Venezuela has not changed. We view the Maduro regime as illegitimate, and the president has clearly shown that he's willing to use any and all means necessary to stop the illegal trafficking of deadly drugs from the Venezuelan regime into the United States of America.
The press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, earlier today with the administration's continued pledge to strike what President Trump is calling narco-terrorists in Venezuela and in the Caribbean. This just some of the scenes there. The attacks have destroyed ships, several of them this month, 17 on board, we believe, killed. Tensions remain high in the Caribbean, with Venezuela announcing it's beginning 3 days of military exercises. There are also reports that the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, reached out to President Trump to conduct talks, but when asked about it yesterday, the president said, quote, "We'll see what happens with Venezuela." Leading Democrats now introducing a resolution under the War Powers Act to stop the strikes, but that basically has no chance of passing. With me now, he is, of course, the News Nation's senior national security contributor, General Richard Newton, back with us once again here on The Hill. General, good evening to you, sir. We heard the White House say, essentially, by any means necessary, the president's going to take care of this. I take it that this is just the start and not the end.
I believe it is, Blake. He said this back when he was running for office, a couple of years or so ago, leading up to the election. Really what he's doing is he's equating, drug traffickers as enemy combatants, and he's going after them. He's done it 3 times, at least by my count, with regard to interdicting. He's using intelligence support. He's using, special operations forces, and certainly precision strike. And there is definitely an escalation to the what is now turning out to be a conflict. But regardless, back in the 80s, when I was a captain in the United States Air Force, I oversaw Air Force foreign military sales for Colombian Air Force. And that was to provide them military capabilities for them to go out and fight counter-drug operations. Fast forward to 2025, here we are actually with a mounting drug problem in the American streets. So I think what the president's doing is he's going after it. He's showing resolve, and he's also showing the fact that this is not anything that he's just going to let pass by. Finally, Senator Tom Cotton from the Senate Armed Services Committee for years has been equating these drug cartels and these traffickers equal to terrorist organizations who are doing harm to the American people. So a lot to unpack here, but this is I think we're going to see more of this in the coming weeks, months, and probably through the year.
So we learned of this letter from Maduro to Trump, and he essentially, according to the reports, called Trump out. What happens here between those two?
Well, that's also there. It's not just the military tool. We're focusing on the military tool aspect of it, but it's broader than that. There are strategic implications regarding, the diplomatic aspects of this, and certainly we've got many friends and allies in the region, in the Caribbean, and certainly in Latin America. And so they're actually, some of those, those allies are actually getting nervous over the fact that the United States, as we escalate this into a drug war, it's more unilateral than perhaps I'd like as well. I'd like to see perhaps more joint operations, coalition building here and so forth to get not just the United States going it alone against drug traffickers, but also like we did back in the 80s, get Colombia and other nations on board with this. And so lots of that work is still ahead. It's not just the military piece that we're concentrating on right now. I think it's broader than that.
All right, General Richard Newton with us tonight as the White House was talking about it today. Thank you, sir. I know we'll catch you again later this week. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Blake.
All right, with me now, Chris Cillizza, News Nation contributor, and T.W. Origi, Vice President of Push Digital Group. Gentlemen, happy Monday.
Hello.
We got a big week ahead of us.
Indeed.
The White House, TW, talking about this. You just spent some time over at the Pentagon. It feels like this is just the start, not the end. When the president says we'll see what happens, you might as well replace that.
Stay tuned.
For all options are on the table. So where does this go from here?
Well, I think to millions of Americans who have lost people to drug overdoses, this couldn't have come soon enough. We see American weaponry shipped all over the world, being dropped on caves in the Middle East, being shipped to Ukraine, and Americans are saying, wait a minute, there's drugs being shipped into this country run by now designated terrorist organizations that are running drugs in and killing our people. They see missiles on those boats that you see being blown up, missiles aimed at their children. And they see this as a proper use of military force. Like I said, some of those Venezuelan cartels are labeled foreign terrorist organizations now. You have, in 2020, in the Southern District of New York, Nicolas Maduro was brought on charges for narco-terrorism. These are real issues. And the fact that Maduro is even reaching out to Trump at all shows this is getting under his skin in a number of ways. This is a great pinpoint pressure point, and I hope it accelerates.
I mean, a war on drugs and drug dealers is, politically speaking, a gigantic win. I mean, I don't think anyone's like, oh, yeah, more drugs in this country is great. And I think the problem that Democrats have, you mentioned about the war powers resolution, the problem that they have is, I think, though I'm not entirely sure, I think the way Trump is justifying this, and by the way, presidents, a Democrat and Republican, have done this, he's using the authorization of use of military force from 2001.
Well, they when Barack Obama was sending drugs all over,
it's the same thing.
Exactly right.
There was this argument back then about, like, can you drone in this place? It's not obviously different terrorist organizations, but I guess it's under the same umbrella.
It's all, and again, like in my view, Tim Kaine has been, the Democratic senator from Virginia, has been banging the drum of, I'm with him, not for partisan reasons, other than, look, if we're going to use military force, this includes Barack Obama, very much so, we should get Congress to have a say in this. We can't just have this open-ended commitment. Now, that said, I'm with TW. I just don't think, I think you'll see more of it, and I think it is not going to be, if you're Democrats and you're looking at, like, where are we going to pick our battles here?
You don't think
this is
right?
No, I mean, look, there's a reason they release these pictures, which is people are like, yeah, take that.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
And make no mistake, that's a deterrent.
Right. There is a chilling effect. I don't think there's any question about that. Politics are clear. Again, the legal and congressional pieces of it are much more complicated, and they were with Barack Obama during his drone war as well. I don't think the average person cares about that at all.
If the Democrats want to be seen on the side of the drug dealers and saving their lives, be my guest.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, see you later in the show. Appreciate it. Show me Air Force One, if we can, before we head to break, because the president is heading out shortly. He is just about to leave the White House. He's headed up to a city he's a little familiar with. It's called New York. If the president speaks, we'll show it to you live later this hour. Still much more, though, tonight here on The Hill. Some news involving Jimmy Kimmel and the move from ABC involving Kimmel's future. And also this.
He wants accountability for these corrupt fraudsters who abused their power.
Is President Trump weaponizing the Department of Justice? He fired off a post Pam Bondi's way over the weekend, and today the White House asked about it repeatedly. We'll show you what they said. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on News Nation, 6:30 here on the East Coast tonight. And Jimmy Kimmel, it appears, is getting his show back. Disney announcing the ABC late night program will return starting tomorrow after Kimmel was yanked for his comments about the death of Charlie Kirk. It comes a day after Kirk's memorial service. As many as 90,000 people packed in and around the stadium, NFL Stadium, to bid one last farewell to the man who started and led Turning Point USA. The president, members of his cabinet, a front row view at the service, many of them taking to the podium and speaking. But it's one comment from the president that has some of his critics saying it was divisive at a time when the country needs to come together. Here was the president yesterday and the White House's latest comments today.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent. And I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica.
The president is authentically himself. I think that's why millions of Americans across the country love him and support him, including Erica Kirk.
On the other side of the aisle, Democrats also being accused of sowing division. On Friday, 58 Democratic lawmakers voted against a House resolution honoring Kirk. Those Democrats saying they couldn't bring themselves to get behind some of the language in the bill or making other comments as well about Kirk. But the House Speaker Mike Johnson pointing out the House earlier this year unanimously adopted a resolution condemning the shootings in Minnesota that left a state lawmaker and her husband dead. With us tonight, we're going to hear from both sides of the aisle. Congressman Greg Stanton, a Democrat from Arizona. Hello, Congressman. Nice to see you again. We're going to get to you here in a moment. I know this was obviously the memorial service taking place in your backyard over the weekend, but first, to the Republican Jimmy Patronis, back once again with us tonight here on the Hill. Congressman, thanks for being with us. I want to start with you on the news that we just learned. Jimmy Kimmel back on the air starting tomorrow night. Disney has made that announcement. If Disney makes that decision as a private company at this point in time, do you respect them and the decision that they made?
Yeah, it's a private company. He's an employee. So if I had an employee who disparaged a person, an entity, and damaged my ability to make a living, if he affects my revenues, then as an employer, I have the right to terminate him. I have the right to sit down with him, build out a remediation program, or bring him back. This is what I feel like Disney's doing. So, look, I'm not going to watch Jimmy Kimmel to say what he's going to say tomorrow night to rehabilitate that relationship. But, you know, I'm sure there's been some deep soul searching, and Jimmy Kimmel will be thinking twice before he's being inflammatory while standing in gunpowder.
What did you make of the comments that President Trump made over the weekend? Obviously, there was a big speech, a long speech, but that the White House was asked today about that line where he says, I hate my opponents, and you heard the press secretary there and her response. When the president said that, what did you make of it, and do you wish he had said something else?
So I think the president, one, is very authentic. Two, there's not many people that have been struck by a bullet and been in the same line of fire as the president. So he has a little bit different to reflect on. And with his emotions that he has dealt with the multiple attempted assassination attempts, you know what? He's got the right to be a little more concerned, disturbed, and push back whenever somebody's trying to make light of the situation. The guy's lucky to be alive.
But bottom right of our screen, we're watching Marine One land at Joint Base Andrews. The president is about to get on Air Force One. Congressman, I was just told that before the president left, he signed an order officially designating Antifa as a terrorist organization. Here was the president earlier today. Then I want to get your reaction.
Antifa is going to be designated a domestic terrorist organization. Not only, as you mentioned, were the bullet casings subscribed with Antifa mottos, if you will, in the heinous assassination of Charlie, but there have also been more examples than I could read off for you here in this briefing room today of violence from Antifa.
That, of course, Caroline Levitt. The former FBI director, Christopher Wray, Congressman, testified once that Antifa was an ideology. I'm not sure that there's a named leader or an what the structure is behind it. I'm not, sure you know as well. I wonder how what you make of the president saying that this is a terrorist organization and trying to pursue violence from that front when it comes to Antifa.
Well, I trust Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi. There's going to be facts that have come to light that we're not going to have privy to, but has obviously brought some concerns for the president to react the way he has. And the turn of events we saw with the death of Charlie Kirk, I'm sure, contributed to that investigation.
All right. Congressman Jimmy Patronis, thank you for the time. I mentioned we want to get both sides. That's what we do here on the Hill and on News Nation. We'll see you again soon. Congressman, come on back in. Of course, Greg Stanton, Democrat from Arizona, from that greater Phoenix area. Congressman, it's always nice to see you and speak with you. Glendale's sort of your backyard or part of it. You're a Democrat. We saw the events yesterday at the memorial service. And I just wonder, sir, from your backyard, from being in Arizona and a Democrat, just sort of your reflections of what you witnessed yesterday in your hometown.
Well, it was a very large event. It more than filled the football stadium where the Arizona Cardinals play. There was overflow into the hockey arena. I think there were lots of people even who couldn't get in either building and were watching from outside. So there was a huge number of people from all over the country. I really think all over the world who came to attend. But on the issue of the statements that should be made on either side of the aisle, it is so important that every person in a position of responsibility condemn political violence. And that's what I've tried to do in my role in Congress, is to make it absolutely clear that under no circumstances can any political differences be resolved with violence. And I hope we hear that over and over and over again from leaders on both sides of the aisle. It's critical at this point.
So how did you feel when there was this resolution in the House honoring Charlie Kirk? You voted for it. Basically, the Democratic caucus was essentially kind of split in half, not literally, but close. 58 Democrats voted against it, 38 voted present, meaning essentially they stayed silent. When you saw that final tally, what did you think?
Well, look, a resolution had passed the United States Senate 100-0. The resolution in the House was not unanimous. Each member, it was a vote of conscience, what they felt about the various statements that Charlie Kirk had made when he was at events and that sort of thing. I really viewed it as an additional way to condemn violence in the political sphere. Our hearts go out to his wife and children who have lost their father. I disagree with Charlie Kirk. I strongly disagree with many of the political positions he took, a lot of the way he phrased things. But I really viewed that resolution as an additional way to say violence has no place in American politics, and we need to stand in a bipartisan way. We need to stand strongly for that position.
You heard Congressman Patronis say he's not going to be watching Jimmy Kimmel. I don't know if you are, but I wonder what you want to hear from him tomorrow night as we watch President Trump wave goodbye there and get on Air Force One. What do you want to hear out of Kimmel, and do you think he owes an apology?
I won't speak of the apology issue. Look, the reason why this whole thing looks so bad is because the person appointed by the president, Mr. Carr, as a commissioner of FCC, was so openly suggesting they were going to yank licenses from ABC for having Mr. Kimmel on there. And that's where the freedom of speech issue comes in. This is government action taking away a comedian's speech. Who's afraid of Jimmy Kimmel as a comedian? I mean, comedy, it's going after politicians, both Democrat and Republican. That is part of the great American tradition. And we should embrace the fact that in America, you could openly criticize President Trump. I think what he was mad about is a clip that he showed of the president and his reaction to the tragic death of Charlie Kirk. And then the president went the next day, said that he was openly going to try to yank the licenses of other comedians and shows that comedians are on because he thought that they were too critical of him. That is not what we do in the United States of America. We have to fight for this First Amendment. And whether they're criticizing me or criticizing Trump or anyone else, we're America, and the First Amendment is a critically important part of who we are, maybe the most important amendment in our United States Constitution. It is worth fighting for, and this attack by the president on the First Amendment, all of us need to stand up and be loud against it.
Greg Stanton, Democrat from Arizona. We'll see you back in studio when you make it back this way. Thank you, sir. Again, Jimmy Patronis, Republican from Florida, as we hear from both sides tonight, and the president now aboard, as you saw there, Air Force One. All right, still to come. Other side of the break, a post over the weekend from the president to Pam Bondi, what the White House is saying tonight. And did you see this at the memorial for Charlie Kirk? Elon Musk and President Trump reunited when The Hill returns.
NewsNation tonight. Inside the largest secret bomber strike in U.S. history, NewsNation's Kelly Myers sits down with the key players who ran the mission.
Our mission is to fly, fight, and win.
Tonight, during Elizabeth Vargas Reports, starting at 7/6 Central.
All right, quote, they impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. You see that post there? President Trump not exactly mincing words when he made this demand via social media, directed at his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, over the weekend, demanding action be taken against the likes of Senator Adam Schiff, former FBI Director James Comey, the New York Attorney General Letitia James, for what he believes as the witch hunts that were targeting him. The White House, during the press briefing today, Caroline Leavitt, peppered with questions about the president's public demand.
It is not weaponizing the Department of Justice to demand accountability for those who weaponized the Department of Justice. You look at people like Adam Schiff and like James Comey and like Letitia James, who the president is rightfully frustrated. He wants accountability for these corrupt fraudsters who abused their power.
All right, so with all the talk during the 2024 election, Trump accusing Biden of weaponizing the DOJ, and you just heard that right there from Caroline Leavitt. Is that what the administration's doing now? Full panel with me now. Chris Cillizza back with us, News Nation contributor. Erica Lowe, first time on the show. Hello, former special assistant to President Biden. T.W. Riggi, once again, VP over at Push Digital Group. And Mark Short, former chief of staff to Vice President Pence. Happy Monday, all. Thanks for being here. So you did it, so I'm going to do it, so we're all cool, even though everybody thinks it stinks.
Look, I think that the Biden administration did great harm to the Department of Justice. I do think they politicized it, and I think it rallied a lot of voters back to Donald Trump, and I think he's making a big mistake by doing the same thing.
You think so?
I think the reality is that voters don't like to see the Department of Justice politicized. And so even though I think it was wrong in the Biden administration, I think there's a lot of Republicans who say, you know, it's our turn to get the retribution. I think in the end, politically, Americans don't like to see that.
Yeah, look, I'm very sympathetic to the two wrongs don't make a right argument, but there are millions of Americans who watch Donald Trump prosecuted over and over again in the court of public opinion about Russiagate, Russiagate, Russiagate. The president says it all the time. He mentions Letitia James, that fraud case in New York that everyone knew was bogus. So Trump sees that, and he says, how can they attack me constantly on bogus charges, and then there's no sort of retribution for that, legally speaking. There's no punishment for that. Now I'm going to enact.
But if there actually is a case, he's totally undermined the case at this point, because any defense lawyer will show the president's statements and say, how can this not be a politicized?
To Mark's point, here was Caroline Leavitt earlier today. Roll it.
Letitia James was actively and openly engaged in lawfare. You talk about weaponizing the Department of Justice. What was Letitia James's campaign slogan? It was prosecute Donald Trump.
Basically, was that, and now the White House is saying, all right, our turn.
Listen, Trump is always the victim when people are investigating him, but he started his career chanting, lock them up. That is what his entire career has been based on. I worked in the White House. We were not allowed to engage with the Department of Justice. And when we did engage with the Department of Justice, it was on policy-related issues, not law enforcement. There is a clear distinction between the way the Department of Justice is being weaponized now and the way that it was being weaponized under Joe Biden. It wasn't.
So I guess the distinction I would make, and I know a lot of conservatives would disagree with this, is that I do think, I'm with Mark and TW in that I don't think all 4 of those indictments that Donald Trump had against him all happen if he's not the former president and maybe running for president again. Right. I think maybe 2 do. The Letitia James one probably doesn't. At the same time, I don't think Joe Biden was like, okay, Merrick Garland, let's do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't strike. Were there people in the DOJ who hated Donald Trump and were like, let's get him? I can buy that. I can believe that. This, to me, is a little bit different in that you have the President of the United States publicly telling his attorney general, we need to get these people. And then, don't forget, getting rid of the U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia because he didn't charge Letitia James and James Comey. Like, that feels a little different to me. I'm not saying that Biden DOJ was perfect, pure, and without problem. But Biden himself coming out and doing it, that doesn't float for me.
I just don't see the comparison here. It's completely different. He fired all those inspectors generals in the Midnight Massacre. He fired Comey and Trump won. He's constantly weaponizing his DOJ. Joe Biden didn't do that at all. I don't understand.
There's conservatives who are going to say, wait a minute, all of this was brought against Trump.
Yeah, because Trump actually committed the offenses. There was actually evidence that indicated that Trump did those things. I don't understand the difference I don't understand the comparison between the two. I truly don't.
So what happens if, you want to jump in?
Well, I mean, look, to say that he did these things, Letitia James' lawsuit was crazy. But also, Jim Comey did lie to the president. He came to him and said during the transition, you're not part of this investigation. We knew darn well he was. And he prosecuted him on a false case on the Rushgate when he knew the information was a lie. So no, I think the Biden administration wrongfully prosecuted Donald Trump. I just think that Americans don't like to see the DOJ used that way.
So what happens when Pam Bondi comes out and says, case against Schiff, Comey, James? Letitia.
I would imagine that their cases are not going to go very far again because I think the president has now tainted the case.
What happens, TW? If?
I think that's true. I do think there is enough damning evidence on James Comey. A little bit less so on Adam Schiff, unless everything that the president accuses of him of is accurate, then I will stand corrected. Letitia James, look, that was a bogus lawsuit. I don't know if that case would go very far.
Before we head out here, before the break, show the image over the weekend. President Trump, Elon Musk sitting side by side. When do you think we see this again? If/when?
Well, they look like best friends there, don't they? I will note, I said this off air, I'll say it on air. I did think it was funny that, like, the reporting clearly had the Trump people making clear that Musk had come to Trump, that Trump didn't ask to see Musk, that Musk had come to Trump. And we kind of know that. Like, it's an imperfect power balance. Trump is the president.
When do you think we see them together again?
I think one minute you see Trump attacking somebody, the next minute you see them, they're best friends, which is what happened in those Pam Bondi tweets. I think that we need to check Trump's mental acuity the same way that we check Joe Biden's.
TW?
I don't know. I just think I thank Charlie Kirk for bringing them back together. It was a great night of unity, a great message of forgiveness. Hope they keep talking, but he has some bigger fish to fry at Tesla.
The president once told me whenever he heard of a girl about to drop them, he would drop her first. So I think that
I thought that was my bit.
I think the reality is that this relationship is in both of their best interests. I think you'll probably see them partner together in the midterms.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it. Still to come here on the Hill, other side of the break. Something I've been following since day one of the second term. And the big news on it today, I'll give you 100 billion reasons why I'm talking about it. My take, other side. All right, if you're just getting home, trying to catch up on today's top news, here's some of what's trending right now on thehill.com. It looks like Oracle is going to be the lead in the TikTok deal. We still don't have all the information here with this one. Still lots of questions, quite frankly. Could get more answers here in the coming days. Ryan Routh, the man accused of trying to kill President Trump, the second assassination attempt. He's going to call 3 witnesses in his defense. He's representing himself, by the way, in that case. And then how about this? Oof. Check your freezer. Shrimp sold in 31 states recalled over radioactive threat. Something like 85,000 bags there that they need to take a look at. For those stories and more, all you have to do is head on over to thehill.com, or you can scan the QR code on your screen. By the way, I write in the Hill Morning Report that's in your inbox every single day to start off the day. All right, I want to take you back, speaking of days, to the first full day of President Trump's second term, January 21st. And look who was at the White House alongside the president, the head of OpenAI, Sam Altman. And I remember thinking at the time, whatever you thought about it, it was certainly different from the prior administration. Well, fast forward to today and a fresh look at the power and the intrigue behind Altman's OpenAI, because NVIDIA, the largest company in the world, announcing it's investing up to $100 billion with a B in OpenAI, an amount so hard to comprehend. I wanted to put that in a little bit of context here. For example, that is about the same GDP as Costa Rica. It's basically the same GDP as the state of Maine, and it's basically the same market cap as Nike. Yes, that's the just do it Nike. And it seems like NVIDIA just did it. Now, it comes as OpenAI and Oracle, by the way, announced a $300 billion deal over 5 years earlier this month. By the way, it was Larry Ellison from Oracle who was at that January 21st event as well with the president. Now, we know that AI can compute who knows what in a split second. But oddly, one of the only things with AI right now that it might not be able to calculate is just how big this whole technological revolution will continue to grow. Coming up next, Henna Doba filling in for Elizabeth Vargas. Tonight, she'll be talking with Erica Kirk's pastor about her decision to forgive her husband's assassin. That's coming up just seconds from now. I'm Blake Burman. I thank you so much for watching us tonight. Henna in for Elizabeth right now.